you guys all know that I love my red and my white wine, and I wanted to do is bring you to this vineyard here. This vineyard produces this amazing Syrah grape, this beautiful red wine that I've got in my hands now. And this climate is perfect. You're probably wondering where I am, really. In the south of France, we're about sort of west from Narbonne, which is in between sort of Montpellier and the Spanish border. Beautiful Mediterranean climate. What that does is produce these amazing grapes. Now this is the beautiful Syrah grape. These vines are really old. You can see the thickness of it. Up to 40 years old these. And what it produces is this amazing tasting red wine, which is exactly the same grapes that were in this bottle. So now I'm going to show you the perfect recipe to accompany this. Now this is a wonderful dish to go fantastically well with this amazing red wine. It's meatballs that are simply cooked with a little bit of sage, and then they're sort of slowly cooked in its own sauce with a little bit of stock, some mustard, some cider, and a touch of maple syrup, served with mash and a nice little apple salad. So the first thing we can do is get on and do the meatballs here. So I've got some beautiful pork mince over here. You can use beef mince if you want, but pork mince is perfect for this. And then I've got some lardons, or rather, I will have in a second, because what you want to do with the lardons is just slice these through. Now you could, if you wanted to, crisp these up. It's entirely up to you. But I actually like it in here, particularly with the raw mince, because it adds texture to all this. And that's all about building up these little meatballs. So we've got our nice little bit of lardons. We've got a touch of sage. A little bit of sage like that. And then you can pop the pork mince. Now it's important with the pork mince not to have it too fatty. You want it sort of partly lean. So a really good sausage meat is a really good alternative to this. If you can't find pork mince exactly how you want it, just take some really good quality plain sausages. But we mix all that lot together like that. And then some salt and pepper. So touch of seasoning, salt and pepper. Now, and then what you want to do is just give this a quick mix and then mould these up into sort of golf ball sized pieces, really. That's what you're looking for. So just roughly mould them up. And you can see by adding those little lardons, you get an amazing bit of texture in this. Now, you don't have to use pork for this one. You can use a bit of beef, you can use chicken. Now, you can, if you want to, pan fry these as they are, but as soon as we're in France, I couldn't resist this, because this I used to do quite a lot when I was working in France. This is called crepinette. Now, you can actually buy this from your butchers. It's fantastic stuff, you know. And I used to do this with lamb, with a stuffed piece of lamb, which was really nice. But with a crepinette, what you need to do is soak it. But it's amazing stuff. Look at the colour of that. It's fantastic looking. And then what you want to do is just cut this into sort of pieces and then use the crepinette to sort of hold it together. So you've got these nice little parcels like that. They almost look like little meaty cauliflowers. Fold that over. Same thing again. So think of this like a little parcel that you want to hold it together with this crepinette. Now, people often think this is actually quite tricky to find. If you ask your butchers, you'll be able to get this, no problem. But one thing you do have to do with it is soak it. Now, this has been soaking for about an hour, just in cold water, just to soften it up. But we can trim this up like that. So, to cook these, nice and simple, we'll just put that pan over here. Now, what we want to do is cook these in a little bit of oil first of all. So, we want a touch of oil to cook these first. You can use olive oil, you can use a little bit of vegetable oil, it's entirely up to you. No butter for this one, not yet anyway, but just a little bit of oil. We want to get this nice and hot. And then what I want to start to do is just pan fry these, just to add a little bit of colour. So they can go in sort of a warm pan, and then you can bring them, that's it, you can hear them cooking away nicely. So while these are colouring, and you just want to colour them, these are not cooking all the way through at this point, because we're going to poach these in a little bit of the cider, the sauce, everything else. And while it reduces it all down, it thickens. It gives us the perfect opportunity to have a little taste, because this red goes well with meat, fish. It's a nice light red as well, not too strong. You hear chefs going all the time about quaffable reds. But this is a really good quaffable red. Perfect for something like this. So we want to make sure that there's a nice colour on it. It's important to get the colour at this stage. So get the pan nice and hot. And this is where you want to be careful not to use butter for this one, because the butter can burn. And if I was doing that, I'd have to deglaze the pan out and clean it. But because we're going to cook this all in the same pan, they're actually going to poach at the same time. It's important to get some colour at this stage. That's pretty good. So nice little bit of colour on there. Now we can think about deglazing this and turning this into a sauce. And the sauce for that, we just use almost half cider, half stock. And of course, cider's got that classic combination to go with pork. And then you can use this. This is just some good quality chicken stock, beef stock. It's entirely up to you, but a nice little bit of stock. What we want to do now is reduce this down, but just with a touch. And this is quite an interesting flavour with this, with a touch of maple syrup. Now you don't have to do this, but this with the pork tastes amazing. But just a little bit of maple syrup. Now you reduce this all down. It's going to take about 5 minutes. So while this is reducing down, so what you're doing with this is really intensifying the flavour, and we're creating a sauce with all the liquor that's left in the pan. So the stock, the little bit of maple syrup, you've got the cider in there, and as this reduces down, it has a lovely sweetness with this that goes particularly well with this pork. So I'll tell you what really works well with this is textures as well. And this is where we can marry this textures up and do a nice little apple salad. And for that, all you want to do really is take an apple. Now, I use these. These are pink lady apples. These are the famous apples that you use in France to make the classic tarte tatin, because they hold their shape and they're a little bit sharp, not too sweet, and perfect for this. We're just going to take our apples and just julienne them. Together with a touch of fresh chives. Now all the while you can just keep your eye on the meatballs, but the whole idea of this is they're just reducing down on their own. You don't even need to worry about it. It's the sauce is the key to this at the end. As the sauce starts to thicken up, that's when we finish it off with a touch of mustard, bit of seasoning, and then it's ready. I'm just going to get our fresh chives. Whenever you're doing this, even though it's just apple, salt and pepper. Now you can, if you want, if the mixture's quite thick when you're doing this, you can actually soften it all down. It's all to do with the, like I said, the quality of the pork. If it's too thick, just add a little bit of egg, something like that will slacken it down a bit. But the nice little salad, a little bit of olive oil with the apple. See, that's just all about textures now. That's now ready. And with this, we're going to serve it with some mashed potato. Now, mashed potato, my mashed potato is equal quantities potato, butter and cream, but it's entirely up to you how you make it. Baked potatoes, put through a potato ricer. You can boil them up. The most important thing is make sure the potatoes dry before you rice it, and get yourself a potato ricer. That way you'll end up with a lovely smooth mash. Now you can see this is starting to reduce down now enough to how we want it. So while this is happening now, as it starts to thicken up, we can grab the sauce and start basting the meatballs. And this will create this beautiful glaze over the top. Now at this point we're going to have a quick little bit more maple syrup, I think. Just a touch. It's quite unusual this, putting a touch of maple syrup in, but it does work. Maple syrup and a touch of mustard. Now I like using a bit of grey mustard, it's entirely up to you, but a nice little bit of grey mustard into the sauce really works so nicely. If you wanted a little bit of Dijon maybe, it's entirely up to you, but nice little good dollop of grey mustard. Turn that off. So the mash is nice and warm. This is starting reducing down now. You can see from this, you get this beautiful glaze over the top as it starts to reduce over there. It starts to glaze over the top. You know when it's ready when this glaze almost just sticks to it. So you can see it's just falling off now. If I reduce that down for a little bit more, it's going to start to become sticky, and that's where we want to serve it. So same thing with all sauces really as well. We add a touch of butter just to finish it. A lot of people think this is just me adding butter to this just for the sake of it, but this is how you finish your sauce classically. This is how it's done all across the globe. Proper sauces are always finished off with a little bit of butter like that. Now the sauce, I can see that starting to reduce down even more now. Start to get lovely and sticky, which is not far off. So at this point, we're almost ready to plate. So I've got my apple, the nice little mashed potato, enough time to have another little taste. And then you've got there, it's just starting to get to this stage now. You can see it in the pan as it starts to reduce down. See that texture changing now? Look at that. You can actually take this too far and reduce it down to sort of almost golden syrup, black treacle-esque, and that's too thick, too strong. And I think that's about there really. We'll turn this off and then we're ready to plate. So you can grab our lovely little meatballs, which are here. You see that lovely crepinette holds it all together as well. And then you've got this gorgeously rich mustard sauce. That goes with it. And then finally, you've got the apple salad. Just put a touch of apple in there. So there you have it. Lovely pork meatballs with mustard cider, a little bit of maple syrup, all to be enjoyed with a nice glass of red wine.